What would luggage look like from Peak Design? With the Roller Pro, that question has finally been answered. So after endless customer requests, endless R&D, this thing's got to be pretty good, right? Welcome back to Gear Grind Reviews. My name's Nathan, and I do in-depth reviews on thoughtful, innovative, everyday carry and travel gear. So I mentioned the leagues of people that wanted Peak Design to release a carry-on product. I was absolutely one of those people. I got Peak Design's travel backpack when it was first released, I think 7 years ago, very close to 7 years ago at this point.
Stop it.
But around that time, it really started to feel like a no-brainer that they would also give us their take on a roller or some kind of carry-on luggage. Just some quick background on my previous carry-on solution up to this point. I've been using an Osprey carry-on for a long time. It's about 15 years old at this point, and man, it has seen better days. But as you'll see in this video, the Roller Pro, besides being a new, yet-to-be-beaten-up replacement, offers a number of innovations that I knew would address some substantial pain points that I've had through the years. Lastly, I did buy this bag myself. This is in no way sponsored by Peak Design or anyone else, because I'm not that lucky. And you will see a couple of affiliate links in the description. If you found this video helpful, give them a little click. So let's dive in, see what their designers dreamed up, starting with design and build quality. So I would say Peak Design is known for combining style, innovative function, and durability. That's certainly how I view them. So naturally, that's what I wanted to see as the theme with their roller. And I'm here to tell you today, they delivered. First off, here are the dimensions of the Peak Design roller, designed to qualify for the rather crucial global carry-on approved status. You're working with 34 liters of packable volume, or 39 with the use of the expansion zipper, which runs along the entire perimeter of the bag. So in addition to this sage colorway that I opted for, it's also available in black and Eclipse, which is basically maroon. Visually, the Roller Pro immediately feels different than the typical suitcase you see around the terminal. I personally am not a fan of those rolling hard shell plastic cubes that are so incredibly common at every airport I've ever been to. Peak Design's take, however, was to go with a hybrid of a soft and hard shell. This kind of gives it a nuance, but still noticeable texture, and it really sets it apart from many of the other comparable products that I've seen on the market. They of course went with their VersaShell fabric, like with what you see in their products in other categories, but it seems notably different here. I think they went a bit heavier on the weatherproof coating. Individual fibers are noticeably less discernible, so that's my guess for what they did, just to increase like the weatherproof aspect of the bag. And I think that was the right move. I mean, a really flexible fabric is much less important here than with a backpack, and rigidity, durability, and water resistance is allowed to be more at the forefront. It does have a thin polycarbonate skeleton underneath it all, so in my opinion, it still offers plenty of resistance to rough handling. Visible branding is also tastefully minimal, I'd say, with this bag, much like their other products. So in all cases, you'd really have to be looking for it, but it does give the bag a little bit of character. That's an absolutely flawless approach as far as my preferences go. Like, that's exactly the type of light touch that I look for. Peak Design's attention to detail is very evident in their first foray into the luggage arena. There are 154 custom-designed, not off-the-shelf components used in this roller. Guess how many was off-the-shelf? One. They make this very clear in some of their promotional materials, one of their videos. So the first of these custom components, it's not unique to the Roller Pro by any stretch of the imagination, but that's the use of Ultra Zips. So if you've seen any of my other videos on their other offerings, you know that I love their zippers. And it's the same story here. I love the application of the Ultra Zips. The zipper tape is color matched to whichever colorway you choose to go with. And as always, their claim of these zippers being weatherproof has absolutely been true in my experience with years and years of usage with their other bags, and I tested it on this one too. So the zipper pulls may not have that like wow factor in terms of look, but I don't care. And here's why. I think durability here is paramount, as my old Osprey lost all of its zipper pulls many years ago. I've been using it for so many years now with zip ties in every single one of them because they're all long gone. I don't even remember what the original ones look like at this point. So I'm happy to see that they went with robust nylon tabs. It does have a piece of plastic integrated into it, so you do have something to pinch and hold on to when you're zipping or unzipping the bag. And I really have a hard time imagining after any amount of time that these are ever going to come loose. I just don't think it's going to happen. And if you're anything like me, that's very important, because when I travel and I have camera gear on top of clothing, like I always have to arrive with a lot of stuff when I'm traveling. So I'm usually asking quite a bit of a bag, and that leaves you pulling on those tabs harder than maybe the average person might to just really cinch everything in. And that does put a lot of stress on the zipper pulls, so I think overbuilt is better here, and I fully endorse that. That's great. So with the launch of this bag, I know that there were some concerns expressed with people wondering if the wheels were really high-end enough, given what this costs. I completely get that. I felt slightly underwhelmed when I saw their promotional materials. Visually, there's not a big wow factor perhaps, but in use, I'm telling you, these things are very good. The wheel components do live up to what the company claims. They react to every input, changing directions quickly and effortlessly. I didn't expect such a smooth and quiet experience either. The assembly is for the most part a plastic compound, but with a thin layer of rubber over the surface of the wheels, they navigate surprisingly well over a variety of surfaces like carpet, smooth and rough concrete, even perforated concrete like on a sidewalk, through water, even in very challenging environments like those weird little crosswalk nipples that you sometimes encounter. I might have to sometimes tilt it back to get over them. In general, it really is an effortless experience. So effortless, in fact, that you may find yourself having to be mindful of even the slightest variation in surface. This is designed for ease of movement above all else. So keep an eye on it, because it'll run away from you. Lastly, for the wheels, they are user replaceable with a simple Phillips screwdriver. If something on the exterior of the bag were to break, I feel like it's probably going to be the wheels, and you wouldn't have to send the whole bag in for service. Peak Design would probably just send out another wheel assembly if you needed to replace one, and you could do it yourself, no problem. And given the company's track record with their lifetime warranty on all of their products, I'd wager you wouldn't even be charged. They've always been very generous, very accommodating when I've made warranty claims in the past with other products, and I expect it to be no different here. And now for the handle. Where do I even start with this? This was by far the headlining innovation for me when I first saw this product announced. This is where you start to see why this piece of luggage comes at a higher price. They went with carbon fiber here. So not only is it extremely strong and lightweight, and it's designed to not have to collapse into itself to function, this is huge. My old bag had that traditional collapsible metal tubing, and this was the first thing to start to malfunction. It's been a huge pain, and I've been dealing with it for years. So with the Roller Pro Slim Drive system, what I like is the fact that there's less moving parts. There's less that can fail. Due to the inherent simplified design, there's far less hardware taking up volume in the interior, but we'll get into that more later once we crack this puppy open. I should mention I did see one example of somebody on Reddit with their roller. There was a bit more wobble than I think was intended, but no matter what totally normal ways I tested it, I didn't notice any play or any wobble. So I could go on and on about this handle, but for now, just let me say that this feature alone is deserving of your attention if you're in the market for a roller. So let's talk about the 360-degree grab handles. You'll see one on the top and on both sides. Very useful for stairs or when you're on gravel. You can easily go from the extension handle to the one on the top or carry it briefcase style on the side. And there's also one on the bottom, making it easier to store in the overhead compartment. I always appreciate being able to use a grab handle as opposed to spinning the bag in place so that I can get access to one of the handles. The fabric feels great on the handles, and there's enough padding to where you'll actually want to use them. They hug the profile of the bag pretty well. They don't like snap in with elastic or anything, but they're not so loose that they kind of distract from the profile and the design of the bag. And the stitching pattern is subtle and extremely strong. The back panel has a number of color-matched rubberized risers that help the bag stay in place. So when you're not wanting it to move, which it does very easily, just tilt it back onto those risers and it stays in place very well. So before we break into the interior, let's first cover the sole external storage component, the EDC pocket. And you'll notice that hallmark stretchy fabric seen across many of their other bags. I've always been a really big fan of this material. I think it has just the right amount of stretch and it feels really nice to the touch. There's a couple of pockets for smaller items like your phone or AirPods. And you'll notice when stretched open, there's this canopy of the same material. And I've loved this addition because it's the perfect place to put my larger high output battery bank that I would never be able to fit into smaller pockets. And it's also a great catch-all when you're emptying your pockets, going through security. I imagine that some people would have rather had access to the internals instead of having this barrier of fabric here. But in my use case, this is perfect. I prefer to maximize quick access items when it comes to external storage. And then when you open this magnetic flap, it reveals laptop storage. This compartment perfectly fits my 16-inch MacBook Pro, even with the case on it. It's snug, but it fits it well. So breaking open into the interior storage, the first thing you'll notice, you're greeted by this, what they call their auto-inspired felt lining on the bottom, something you just really don't ever see. And this is one of the most obvious examples of how they just don't stick to the playbook when they're bringing a product to market. Instead of just having a bunch of loose, floppy nylon here, like my Osprey and many other bags that just are trying to hide the hardware of the handle behind it. They didn't do that. They're not even trying to hide it. They're like, yeah, look, it's our carbon fiber right here. We don't care. And this is a big win, not just cosmetically, but because it squeezes every last drop of usable volume out of the interior. So a lot of people in the comments in previous videos have asked, okay, that's great that it can do it, but how do you actually pack the bag? So I'd like to take this opportunity to show you how I pack out the Roller Pro when I'm heading out for a trip. This roller now represents half of what I call the golden combo.
It's the golden combo.
What's the other half of the golden combo, you might ask? Of course, the 45-liter travel backpack, also from Peak Design. I hope this doesn't seem too much like a paid Peak Design advertisement, because it's really not. This just so happens to be exactly what I've been using for a very long time. I've loved this bag. Using it in tandem with the roller is going to address many, hopefully all of the concerns that I've had, the issues that I've had for many years. Don't. So the golden combo is a two-pronged approach that allows me to never have to check a bag, even with a bunch of heavy camera equipment. I use a combination of 2 to 3 packing cubes as well as a camera cube for all of my gear. Using packing cubes and camera cubes is essential for me, especially because even though both of these could fit in the overhead compartment on even a 737 or something, but with those tiny regional planes, you have to check your carry-on, even if it's carry-on approved, because they're just tiny. And what I do in those situations, since by default I have the heaviest stuff, the camera gear, in the roller, because I'm not having to support the weight of it, obviously. When I find out I have to gate check a bag, in these cases, I simply swap the clothing in my packing cubes with the camera cube going in the backpack, which does fit in the overhead compartment or under the seat, so that the expensive and fragile camera gear always stays within reach. It's beautiful. Plus, you're not supposed to have batteries in the bag that you check anyway, and it automatically solves this. It's just genius. So going back to the Roller Pro, packing a variety of cubes or loose clothing, especially puffy jackets, is made very simple. I think they really innovated with the compression methodology in the roller. It's what they call their cord hook internal retention system. It's essentially this network of elastic bungee cords that runs the length of the interior edge, and you can quickly stretch it across and it snaps onto itself in whatever way you need. And I feel like even if you choose not to use it or you don't need to use it, you don't have to remove it to be out of the way. It just kind of, like I said, hugs the interior. So it's really an elegant, effective solution. Up top, you will find a drop-down divider. I kind of just use this as a partition for dirty and clean socks and underwear. That way you're not having to do like the smell test on every new day. Be like, no, that's the one. That might be too much info, but there you go. But if you'd rather have a single, larger volume instead, you can activate burrito mode, which is actually what Peak Design calls it internally, which I think is hilarious. It just rolls up like a burrito. It can be secured with a similar bungee system, just like what they use for their compression in the main compartment. Out of the way. Barely there, and you have just that little bit more of a usable space up top. But of course, if you do that, you won't really have access to these 3 ripstop compartments. It's a semi-transparent material, looks really nice, feels really nice, clear enough to see what's in it without opening it. These are good for toiletries or cables, etc. if you're not using a pouch for those items like I tend to do, but nice that you have the option here. And while we're up here, there are 2 hidden pockets. There's one under this flap, like this is the canopy from the exteriors, you might remember. That's where all of that's sitting, so that may not lay as flat as what you're seeing here because there's nothing in it right now, but under that, you're reminded. The no 2 trips are the same. I probably could have done without that. I don't really need to be reminded of that. Like, I know it's their slogan, but maybe someone out there really gets inspired when they see it. Most minor nitpick of all time, I don't care that it's there. It's hidden anyway, but I just think it's kind of funny. And then there's a sneaky little AirTag pocket right on the side there. You remember when I was talking about the 154 components out of the 155 that were custom made? Well, do you want to know what that one was? This right here. Out of all of the components, this tiny little button is the only one that they're like, I don't think we can do that better. So I think that's kind of cool.
It does its job pretty well, and we couldn't really think of anything to improve it.
So the hinge hardware is visible, and you can just tell these are beefy and high quality. And it's those hinges combined with these drawbridge cords that allows the lid to stay in place when open. Future Nathan here. I wanted to jump in real quick with a word on the hinges. There is a known issue, Peak Design is quite aware of it, where a number of bags, seemingly a fair amount of them, are coming out of the factory and they have a minor squeak. Since filming, this bag has been in Africa for about 5 weeks, and now it squeaks. If you listen really closely, maybe you can hear it. Did you notice it? Apparently you just need a little bit of what's called PTFE oil. It's like a dry lubricant. It dries with a residue instead of like an oily finish. So we're gonna give that a shot right now, see if it works. Okay, that is a very strong smell. Quite industrial. Hopefully that dissipates. Gonna let this air out for a little bit, but this is real time. First time seeing if this fixes it. Yeah. All All right, so as expected, not a huge deal, but I did want to call it out because a lot of people are running into this, but it's kind of, you're basically just doing what they were supposed to do in the factory, wherever the production line was. So it's not a huge deal. It's good now. This drawbridge idea here was one of the main things that I was like, that's pretty cool. I can see that being a huge benefit. I find it hugely helpful. It makes it much easier to pack, much easier to access everything when you're on your trip, when this thing's just stationed in your hotel room. It's just really nice to have everything presented at a glance like that without this just flapping down like a loose piece of fabric. Okay, let's talk pricing and value. And hold on to your butts. This bag retails at $600. And there's no way around it. You're probably gonna have some sticker shock when you see that number. I did too. I missed the Kickstarter window where you could have got it for a little bit cheaper. I almost pulled the trigger, but I didn't do it. Why? Even though I paid every dime of that full retail price, do I think it's worth it? For me, absolutely. Your carry-on represents so much of the foundation of how the hardest part of your trip is gonna go. The logistics, the getting there part. And when you can reduce or eliminate pain points, and when interacting with a bag that's your companion throughout the whole thing is a joy, not simply a means to an end, I personally value that immensely. Especially when you consider the fact that they have one of, if not the best lifetime warranties of any company I can imagine. So when you consider that, you're buying this for life. So why wouldn't you make it good? Why would you not want to have as few caveats as possible? You have so little of that with this roller, at least in my opinion. It doesn't leave much to be desired for me. So the saying for me when it comes to this and many things like it, buy once, cry once. It's gonna hurt that one time, but it's gonna pay dividends even if you travel semi-frequently. There are of course a dizzying amount of competing rollers on the market, like what Away offers as far as more directly competing companies like Nomadic, Wandered, and many, many, many others. And they're all cheaper. And I'd like to tell you that I've tried them all and go really in depth with comparing every single feature, but number one, I haven't. And number two, I'm probably not going to because I'm kind of done looking. Like this thing is great for me, super happy with it, and I look forward to using it for a very long time. I hope if nothing else, after you've watched all of this, it kind of makes more sense why they're asking for that $600 price. There's just so much custom hardware here. They didn't phone anything in. They didn't just order anything off a catalog and be like, well, we'll put the PD logo on it and great, now we have a suitcase. They did it all from the ground up. They reimagined so much of it and executed it very, very well. If you're a fan of how it looks and the features that I've called out, if those seem like they'd be of value to you, just get it, enjoy it, and you'll have a bag that'll last you forever with that warranty. Unless you lose it. It doesn't cover that, but just don't do that. Well, I think that's all I got for this one. Affiliate links down below if you did find this video helpful and you want to check the bag out. Truly appreciate when you use those so I can keep doing this kind of thing. Thank you so much for stopping by. See you on the next one.